Shiny Pokemon are some of the rarest things you can find in any Pokemon game. In Pokemon Black and White 2, this fact remains true as the chances of finding a shiny are 1 in every 8,192 encounters. Knowing this, I decided to put myself through sheer torture, and I'm gonna try to beat Pokemon White 2 using only shiny Pokemon. And as if this tedious task wasn't enough, I'm also gonna be adding on the hardcore Nuzlocke rules that you see on screen now. With all of that being said, I'm ready to get into the run, so I name myself Zango, name my rival Butthead. I don't really know why I did that, but regardless, I ended up starting my first shiny hunt. This shiny hunt is for my starter, and it's gonna be Snivy. Shiny hunting for a starter is always such a grueling process, and after about 3 weeks of straight up shiny hunting, I ended up finding this. Oh, I got it! Yes! Oh my gosh! Yes! Oh, let's go, dude! Finally! Holy, oh my god, man! Unfortunately, I'm not able to give Snivy a nickname purely because if I were to give Snivy a nickname, then my shiny hunt would have taken significantly more time, so not for this Pokemon, I guess. Now that I've got Snivy, I end up battling Butthead, and he actually brings me pretty low, down to 3 HP. Snivy's a little bit of a poor choice for a starter, but I can still do this. I got this. With Butthead defeated, I'm able to go talk to my mom. I say bon voyage to her, then I'm off towards the first route. On this route, I learn how to catch a Pokemon for the gazillionth time in my life, and I then move on to Alder, who just jumps off the cliff like an actual psychopath. I know I say that a lot, but this fall is literally like 30 feet. I don't really know how he's still here with us, but regardless, I end up moving past him onto Velocity Ranch where I'm able to start another shiny hunt. The reason I'm doing it in the ranch is because there is a lot of good Pokemon here. There's a Azumarill, Riolu, Mareep, all Pokemon I'm okay with getting. That being said, in a relatively quick shiny hunt, I ended up finding a Riolu, which was the encounter I was looking for. Shiny Lucario is honestly seriously underrated, and now that I have Riolu on the team, I give him the nickname Titanium, then I move further down into the ranch so I can save this Herdier. I've got to save this Herdier from this Team Plasma guy, and he starts talking all his smack, blah 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 this, blah 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 that. He doesn't even end up fighting me, he just runs away. I think it's pretty obvious he was scared of my shinies, but I digress as I move past him and onto this school. In here, I end up beating up a few school kids, then after leaving the school, I meet this man who's just standing outside of the school menacingly, which is, I mean, very weird in and of itself, but he just gives me a bunch of medals, which I guess makes everything okay. Once he runs off, Alder jumps off yet another cliff, then I'm able to make my way into the first gym to challenge Charon. Charon leads the battle with Patrat as I lead with Snivy. With Snivy, I start out by going for 3 consecutive growths, as then Patrat goes for 3 consecutive workups. On the 4th turn, I end up going for a Vine Whip with Snivy, and it brings Patrat all the way down into the red as he decides to set up a 4th workup. On the next turn, Charon heals with a potion as I'm able to finish off Patrat with yet another Vine Whip as that leads into the final Pokemon, Lillipup. Having set up so many growths earlier, I'm able to finish off Lillipup with just 2 Vine Whips as that ends up winning me my first gym badge. With that badge acquired, I'm off towards Verbank City. Once I get into the city, I witness Roxy call someone a dim-witted, dense, dumb, daft, dippy, dorky, doltish doofus, which is a crazy mouthful to say. As you can tell, she's very angry, and she ends up going to her gym and playing a bunch of music very loudly to the point where she can't even hear me. Her not listening to me really gave me the motivation to go out and evolve my team, so I end up evolving Snivy into Servine, and I evolve Riolu into Lucario. Now that my team's evolved, I challenge Roxy for my second gym badge, and she leads the battle with Coughing as I lead with Lucario. Against Coughing, I start out by going for a return, and it ends up doing about 2/3 as Coughing hits me with a tackle. That tackle literally only did 3 HP, so I'm able to finish off Coughing in the next turn as that leads into the final Pokemon, Whirlipede. Whirlipede really isn't much of a big shot, all it takes is 2 returns to take her down, and with that, that's my second badge. With that badge, I'm now able to move on to everybody's favorite part of Pokemon Black and White 2, Pokestar Studios. Nah, but for real though, this place is actually garbage. Even the NPCs don't like being here. They're sleeping during the movie. They are literally sleeping. Regardless though, after escaping that purgatory, I end up fighting a little bit of Team Plasma. They really aren't that powerful, so after a pretty quick set of battles, I end up making my way into Castelia City. Now that I'm in Castelia, I've got to go immediately to the sewers, and once I make it here, Butthead meets up with me, and we both fight a little bit of Team Plasma. Once they're finished, I end up starting to run around in these sewers for a little bit, and this is where I start my next shiny hunt. This one sucked a little bit more than the last, and after about a couple of days of shiny hunting, I ended up finding a shiny Zubat. After getting the bat Pokemon, I name him Bruce, then I evolve Zubat into Golbat so I can go challenge Castelia City's first gym. This gym battle is against Berg, and he leads the battle with Swadaloon as I lead with Titanium. With Titanium, I start out by going for a workup as Swadaloon hits me with a string shot. On the next, the return is able to finish off Swadaloon with a one-shot as next out comes Leavanny. Leavanny starts out by going for a Razor Leaf, and it does minimal damage, bringing me down to 57 HP as I go for a return, bringing Leavanny down to about a third. He heals some of that damage with a Citrus Berry, but it's not enough, as on the next turn, Leavanny goes down to yet another return, as that leads into the final Pokemon, Dwebble. Against Dwebble, I go for a Force Palm that brings him down to about a third, and it ends up paralyzing. Along with this, to add insult to injury, Dwebble's not even able to get a hit off, as he gets fully paralyzed, and another Force Palm does the trick. With Dwebble down, I get my third badge, and I start my journey towards the fourth in Nimbasa City. The only obstacle from Castelia to Nimbasa is Chorus. To be honest with you, he's really not much of an obstacle though, as Lucario is able to pretty much sweep his entire team. That being said, while I'm on my way into Nimbasa, I meet these guys who say, "Subscribe?" And trust me, I did not tell them to say that. They just wanted to tell you guys to subscribe because they think Zango's a pretty cool channel. That's their words, not mine though. Regardless of that, I end up finding myself in Nimbasa, and once I get here, I meet a lot of strange people. The first two people I meet are this guy and girl who are on a first date, and this guy says, What should I talk about on my first date? Obviously, this guy's pretty nervous. Cut him some slack. But this girl doesn't want to cut him any slack. And she says, even in an amusement park, he does nothing but play guitar, which is just big yikes, unfortunate, man. The last weird person I meet in this place is this kid who makes possibly the worst joke I've ever heard. He's standing next to an Audino and says, "What's that? I don't know." And if you don't get the joke, it's just Audino. If you say I don't know really fast, it's dumb. It's really bad. That all being said, I move past those people to evolve my Golbat into Crobat. Then after doing that, I'm ready to challenge Elisa for my fourth badge. Elisa leads the battle with Emolga as I lead with Lucario. The first thing I do is set up a workup as Emolga hits me with a Volt Switch and moves out into Zebstrika. Zebstrika starts out by going for a Pursuit against me, and it does essentially no damage as I then go for a Bone Rush and it's able to take her out. Elisa then sends in Falafi, who gets immediately pulled back out after getting annihilated by a Bone Rush, and that leads into the final Pokemon, Emolga. Against Emolga, I decide to Uno reverse the crap out of her, and I go for a me first, steal the move Volt Switch, use the move Volt Switch, and end up finishing her off with a one-shot. With Emolga down and Elisa taken care of, I get my fourth badge. Once I leave that gym, Butthead asks if we can fight Team Plasma together, but I'm not this guy's friend, so no, we cannot. After getting past that little roadblock, I end up getting into another roadblock, this one being Charles. Not only is this guy an absolute hunk, but his team is actually pretty good too. Thankfully though, my team is just better, so after squeaking out a win against him, I end up finding myself in Driftvale City. Not only is this place home to one of the best Pokemon themes of all time, but it's also home to the 5th gym. Before I go through that though, I've got to go through Butthead yet again, and he's just screaming at these poor Team Plasma members. He's talking about, "Where's my Purloin? Where's my Purloin?" And honestly, he's just too much right now. Nah, but seriously though, this storyline about his Purloin is extremely messed up. I'll talk more about it later, but for now, we're on to the 5th gym. Clay leads the battle with Krokorok as I lead with Servine. I start the battle off by going for a Leaf Blade on Krokorok, and it brings him down to legitimately 1 HP as he then hits me with a Crunch. Knowing that Clay's gonna heal, I decide to go for a Growth, and after Clay heals, I'm able to finish off Krokorok with a one-shot with Mega Drain. This leads into the next Pokemon, Sandslash, and for Sandslash, I start out by going for a Growth as Sandslash hits me with a Crush Claw. This Crush Claw doesn't do too much as it only brings me down to 67, and on the following turn, Sandslash gets finished off by a Mega Drain. This leads into the final Pokemon, Excadrill, who starts out by going for a Metal Claw that brings me down to 56 as I go for a Leaf Blade, which brings him down to about a third. He then heals up with a Citrus Berry, and because I'm a little bit scared for Servine here, I decide to switch out into Titanium. This ended up being a really solid switch as Titanium takes not very effective damage on the switch in, and on the following turn, a Force Pump finishes off Excadrill. With that, Clay's defeated, and I win my 5th badge. Next up is Skyla, and to get to her, I have to go through the Pokemon World Tournament. This whole tournament really isn't much, and after absolutely annihilating the entire thing, I end up fighting a little bit more of Team Plasma. This all happens on their not-so-secret boat, and after Team Plasma successfully kicks the 3 of us off, we end up going towards Chargestone Cave. In Chargestone Cave, there's a lot of really solid Pokemon, but I decide to get absolutely none of them and head straight through that place into Mistrulian City. Listen, I know the city's name is Mistralton, not Mistrulian, but I've messed up that clip so many different times, it is unbelievable. It's whatever though, I'm off towards Celestial Tower where I can actually get my next shiny. In this place, there's a 100% encounter rate for Litwick, and if you didn't know, Chandelure is a pretty cool shiny and a pretty good Pokemon, so I'm gonna go for that. This quest for my shiny Litwick ended up being another not so bad shiny hunt, and in only about 7 hours, I got myself a shiny Litwick that I named Lumos. Oh, I got it. Nice. Oh my god, nice. Finally, dude. I knew it was gonna be Litwick. It's 100% encounter right here. I'm just hyped about it. Nice, man. It's such a good shiny, too. Just look at that blue flame, baby. Ugh. Lumos is a level 28, which fits in perfectly for my next shiny hunt. For my next hunt, I decided to catch an HM slave to move on to Mistralton Cave so I could look for Axew. Before starting this shiny hunt, I brought Lumos up to level 30, and the reason I did this is because in this cave, Axew is found at level 30. As I said earlier, this works out perfectly, as now I can start to spam repels, and the only encounters I'll get in this cave are Agron and Axew. This whole thing greatly increases my chances of finding an Axew, but it also does increase the time it takes to find a shiny, and in about 15 days, I ended up finding a shiny Axew. Yes! Yes! Bro, I would have been so mad if it was an Agron. I would have been so mad. I mean, Agron's a nice shiny, and not bad, but he ain't no Haxorus. He ain't no Haxorus. Nice. After catching Axew, I gave him the nickname Typhon, then looked at his nature, which was Adamant, which is literally the best he could have had. That is insanely good for me. Either way though, I ended up evolving Axew into Fracture and Servine all the way up to Superior so I can challenge Skyla for my 6th gym badge. Skyla leads the battle with Zubat as I lead with Bruise. Against Zubat, I start out by going for a bite as Zubat goes for an attract, making me attracted to her, I guess. Thankfully, this attraction doesn't last very long, and I'm able to nail Zubat with another bite, finishing her off as that leads into Swanna. Against Swanna, I outspeed and start out by going for an acrobatics that brings Swanna down into the yellow as she heals up a little bit with the citrus berry. She ends up doing minimal damage with an air slash, as in the following turn, another acrobatics is able to take her out as that leads into the final Pokemon, Skarmory. Skarmory's, not a good Pokemon, so I simply just switch into Lucario, go for a couple of Force Palms, and that wins me my 6th badge. After defeating Skyla, she takes me onto her private jet where she just leaves me in the middle of actual nowhere. That being said, after traveling around the hot desert for hours without food or water, I eventually find myself in Undella Town ready to challenge my rival, except not really. Yeah, no, I'm not ready for that, purely because I want to finish my last shiny hunt. In this shiny hunt, I'm not really looking for anything specific, to be honest. There's a lot of good Pokemon in this route, and just running back and forth in the dark blue grass should get me something good. Thankfully, I did end up finding something pretty solid, and in about 13 hours, I found myself a shiny Mienfoo. I gave Mienfoo the nickname Lee, then I challenged Butthead in my rival battle. Butthead shows off perfectly why I don't really talk about rival battles much, as he gets absolutely annihilated, and this just leads me on further into the story. When I say story, I really mean story. They literally just spoon feed you information at this point in the game. Professor Junifer and Bianca are simply just talking about the legendaries. It's really strange. That being said, as I step away from all this story, I go under this bridge and this girl calls me, and she's kind of flirting. She goes, "Wow, so you're a boy, Zango?" And yeah, I am. And then she proceeds to say, "It's a little annoying that we can't see each other, right?" And honestly, I count that as an absolute W. My Riz is immaculate. She ends that call with a little tee-hee, then I've got to go back onto the actual story of this game with Team Plasma. As those goons get absolutely annihilated, I get closer and closer to Opelucid City. I was nearly there when I witnessed Virizion pull her best Alder impression by jumping off a cliff. People in Pokemon in this game, man, they're really just crazy. That being said though, I'm finally onto Opelucid City, and once I get here, I evolve Fracture into Haxorus, and I evolve Litwick all the way up to Chandelure so I can challenge the 7th gym. Against Drayden, I lead the battle with Haxorus as Drayden leads with Drudagon. I start out by going for a Dragon Dance, raising my speed and attack stat as Drudagon hits me with a slash that brings me down to 89. On the next turn, Drudagon is one-shotted by a Dragon Claw as next out comes Flygon HG, who gets absolutely annihilated. With Flygon having gone down to just one Dragon Claw, last out comes Haxorus. Honestly, this isn't even a challenge. Another Dragon Claw finishes off Haxorus, and that wins me my battle against Drayden. After defeating the easiest gym of the run so far, Team Plasma rolls up and lights up Opelucid City. After Opelucid gets iced, I end up fighting a ton of Team Plasma, then Drayden gives me these DNA splicers. To be honest, I don't really know why he gave them to a 16-year-old, because it literally gets immediately robbed from me, and hey, that's just what happens. I make a really valiant effort to try to get these things back, but no dice. These guys end up getting away, and I just go to Humalao City. In Humalao City, the gym leader Marlin scares me out of my absolute wits. Then I end up evolving Mienfoo into Mienshao so I can challenge the 8th and final gym. gym. Marlin ends up leading the battle with Caracosta as I lead with Superior. I end up moving first and going for a coil, which raises my attack and defense stat as Caracosta hits me with a crunch. After this crunch, I'm down to 126 HP, so I go for a return on Caracosta just to break Sturdy as he decides to go for a Shell Smash. On the next turn, now that Sturdy's broken, I'm able to go for a 4-time super effective Giga Drain that finishes off Caracosta and leads me on to the next Pokemon, Wailord. Wailord is a really tanky Pokemon, but due to the coil I set up earlier, my attack is up 1 stage, so that's just enough for me to get off a Leaf Blade and finish off Wailord with a one-shot. With that, Marlin's on to his final Pokemon, Jellison. Jellison actually poses a really big threat to me. Nah, I'm just playing. A single Leaf Blade's able to take him out, and that wins me my final gym badge. After finishing up that last gym, I roleplay as a Frillish for a little bit, then I move on to Colress, and he gives me this little device thing. I use this device to wake up this poor sleeping Crustle, and after he's fully awoken, I decide to annihilate him in a battle, then move on to fight a ton of Team Plasma. After fighting enough of them, I end up learning their password, and after using their password to get further into their ship, I end up fighting this guy who just has a lot of ice types. His ice types though are no match for Lee, so after beating him in a battle, Team Plasma ends up blasting off again, then I've got to go fight more and more and more Team Plasma. All of these fights go down in the Giant Chasm, and in this Giant Chasm, I end up fighting Colress. Colress has a bunch of steel types, and thankfully, I have a fire type and 2 fighting types, so as you can imagine, this battle goes in my favor. Earlier in this video, I mentioned how Butthead is always looking for this Purloin, and this really comes to fruition right here at this point in the story. Apparently, after Team Plasma stole the Purloin, they ended up just bringing it up as their own, and they ended up evolving it into a Liepard. This Liepard is thrown out against Butthead, and it's got its claws on Butthead's neck. What used to be Butthead's Pokemon is now a member of Team Plasma, and this is just a really messed up situation. That being said though, in order to save Butthead, I've got to go fight Ghetsis. Before fighting him, I'm forced to fight White Kyurem, and this isn't a difficult fight. 2 Dragon Claws is able to take him down, and now Ghetsis is next. Ghetsis leads the battle with Cofagrigus as I lead with Typhon. Against Cofagrigus, I start out by going for a Dragon Dance as Cofagrigus hits me with a Toxic, but I heal it off with a Pecha Berry. After doing that, I go for a Dragon Claw on Cofagrigus, and it one-shots as next out comes Hydragon. As you can imagine, Hydragon gets one-shotted as well, as next out comes Seismitoad, who experiences much of the same. After Seismitoad, Drapion comes in, and against Drapion I go for a Dragon Claw, and it actually brings him down into the red as he then hits me with a Night Slash that brings me down to 123. It's at this point that Ghetsis decides to heal up Drapion with a full restore, but it really doesn't matter much as 2 more Dragon Claws finish him off. The last 2 Pokemon are Electros and Toxicroak, and they just get one-shotted by Dragon Claws. That right there ends up being my last battle with Team Plasma, and you know what that means. I'm on to the Elite Four. It's a bit of a long journey though, and it starts with me talking to N right outside of Victory Road. Going through Victory Road doesn't take as long as I anticipated, and it leads me on to my final rival battle. I would go over this battle if I didn't just sweep with Haxorus. I mean, Dragon Dance is kind of a busted move. That being said though, after this battle, I find myself in the Pokemon League. Once I finish training up my team and bringing them up to the level cap, I'm ready to challenge Chantal in my first Elite Four battle. Chantal leads the battle with Cofagrigus as I lead with Lumos. On Lumos, I have a spell tag, so I go for a Shadow Ball on Cofagrigus, and the spell tag gives me just enough damage to one-shot. Next out is Golurk, and against him, I decide to go for yet another Shadow Ball, and it one-shots. This battle is going really good right now, but when Drifloon gets sent out, I'm actually not sure if I can one-hit. Drifloon has this super high HP stat, but even with that, I still do hit the one-shot, which is really nice. My Chandelure is just him, so when Chantal's Chandelure gets sent out, she gets one-shotted by a Shadow Ball, and that wins me my first Elite Four battle. Not gonna lie to y'all, that was extremely easy. Next up, we have Grimsley. Grimsley leads the battle with Liepard as I lead with Mienshao. Liepard starts this battle off by hitting me with a Fake Out, but since my ability is Inner Focus, I'm able to get through that and hit a Drain Punch which one-shots. Next out is Bisharp, who gets annihilated by a 4-time super effective Drain Punch. With that, Crocodile gets sent in, and on the switch in, I get hit by that Intimidate, which is really annoying, so I decide to go for a high jump kick just to make sure I'm gonna one-shot, and I do. That leads into the final Pokemon Scrafty, and hey, you guys have heard it before, you're gonna hear it again. You gotta risk it for the biscuit. I decide to go for a high jump kick, and I hit, but I actually don't kill. It brings Scrafty all the way down into the red. After that, Scrafty hits me with a Brick Break that brings me down to 91 HP, and then Grimsley heals up on the next turn. This heal up really didn't mean anything, as 2 Drain Punches are enough to finish off Scrafty, and that wins me the second Elite Four battle. Now for my next fight, it's a bit of a tough decision between Caitlyn and Marshall, but in the end, I decided to go for Marshall. He leads the battle with Throw as I lead with Haxorus. I start this battle off by setting up a Dragon Dance as Throw ends up hitting me with a Bulldoze. This Bulldoze doesn't do much, so in the next next turn, I decide to set up another Dragon Dance as Bulldoze hits me yet again. I'm not trying to get too low, so I decide to go for a Dragon Claw against Throw here, and it ends up one-shotting as next out comes Mienshao. This ugly, non-shiny Pokemon is no match for a Dragon Claw, and after he goes down, Conkeldurr comes out next. I figured Conkeldurr with a high defense stat might be a problem, but of course it's not. Dragon Claw one-shots, and this leads into the final Pokemon, Sawk. Now this is a bit of a weird situation because Sawk has Sturdy, so I decide to go for a Slash to see if I can just break that Sturdy a little bit, and I end up bringing Sawk down to 1 HP. He then hits me with a Brick Break and does an insane amount of damage, bringing me all the way down to 39. With a critical hit, I could have lost Haxorus there, which would have been really bad. Thankfully, I didn't though, and on the next turn, Marshall heals as I go for another Slash. This Slash, along with the Dragon Claw, finishes off Sawk, and that wins me my third battle. The last Elite Four member to fight is Caitlyn, and she leads the battle with Musharna as I lead with Haxorus. Against Musharna, I start out by going for an X-Scissor, and it does half as Musharna hits me with a Yawn. On the following turn, another X-Scissor is able to finish off Musharna as I then fall asleep. This doesn't really matter much as I plan to switch anyway, so I decide to move into Lumos, who takes not very effective damage on the switch in, but does take a critical hit. With that critical hit, I'm left with 105, and on the following turn, I go for a Shadow Ball and Sigilyph, and it ends up one-shotting. Gothitelle is also one-shotted as that leads into the final Pokemon, Ranunculus. I hope that's how you say it. Regardless, she just goes down to a Shadow Ball, and that means I've won my final Elite Four battle, and I'm off towards the champion. Iris is the champion of this game, and she leads the battle with Hydragon as I lead with Lee. With Lee, I start out by going for a high jump kick, and I actually outspeed Hydragon and it one-shots. Next out is Drudagon, and for this, I have to make a decision on whether or not to go for Drain Punch or high jump kick, so I decide to go for the risk, of course, and it ends up paying off as I absolutely obliterate Drudagon with a critical hit high jump kick. Next out is Agron, and Agron is 4 times weak to any fighting move I use, so Drain Punch is able to one-shot as that leads into the next Pokemon, Archeops. Archeops could be a bit of an issue if he hits me with that acrobatic, so I decide to take a little bit of a risk. Again, high jump kick comes out and succeeds yet again as this leads into Haxorus. Iris absolutely loves to set up with Haxorus, so I move out into Bruce. On the switch in, Bruce doesn't get hit for any damage as Haxorus sets up a Dragon Dance. On the next turn, Haxorus sets up another Dragon Dance as I set up a Confuse Ray. I couldn't believe it while I was in battle, but Haxorus had the gall to set up a third Dragon Dance as I go for an Acrobatics, and it does like a third. On the 4th turn with Haxorus, she hits herself with Confusion, and it brings her into the yellow as another Acrobatics finishes her off. This all leads into the final Pokemon, Lapras, and for Lapras, I switch out into Titanium. On the switch in, Titanium gets immediately slept, and I try to stick in for a turn, maybe I get a lucky wake up, but no dice as I get hit for a Surf pretty hard. It's whatever though, because it really doesn't matter, as a simple switch into Mienshao and a high jump kick is all that it takes to finish off this Lapras and win me my final battle of this run. Let's go! That's Iris. She's down, and I've officially completed my shiny only 100% deathless. So guys, that is the end of the video. I really hope you guys did enjoy, and if you did, if you could leave a like and subscribe, that would really help me out. Thank you all for the recent support on these videos. It really has been great. And with that being said, that was my attempt at a Pokemon White 2 Hardcore Nuzlocke using only shiny Pokemon.